Well, welcome to our minor protection policy training. In Mark 10, verses 13 through 15, it says, people were bringing little children to him, to Jesus, in order that he might touch them. And the disciples spoke sternly to them. But when Jesus saw this, he was indignant and said to them, let the little children come to me. Do not stop them, for it is to such as these that the kingdom of God belongs. Truly, I tell you, whoever does not receive the kingdom of God as a little child will never enter it. And he took them up in his arms, laid his hands on them, and blessed them. This incident moment in the ministry of Jesus speaks to the value that our Lord placed on children and the example of faith that they provide for the rest of us. But the inherent vulnerability and dependence of minors requires a great commitment from our community of faith to protect them. So we have a minor protection policy at Woodbridge NAS to help us with this, to make clear the ways that we interact with minors. And so anyone who intends to routinely serve with minors has the potential to be alone with an unrelated minor or be seen as a church leader should be screened and trained on child protection issues. So today, Pastor Luke and I are going to give you an orientation to our minor protection policy. You should follow along with a paper or online version. As we go, we're not going to read every word of it. That would be super boring. But we're going to focus on the highlights while you read through on your own. If you need an online version, you can go to woodbridgenas.com/MPP for minor protection policy. That's a hidden URL. You can't just click on it from our website, but you can go there at any time and get any of the documents that we're talking about today. So if we move into the first part of our document on page 2, we're going to talk about why. Why do we have this MPP? Well, it's to provide a safe and secure environment for children, youth, adults, members, volunteers, visitors, paid staff, everybody who interacts in our ministries. This document assists Woodbridge NAS in evaluating a person's suitability to supervise, oversee, or exert control over the activities of minors. So in the state of Virginia, that is anyone under the age of 18. And it is designed to help satisfy the concerns of parents and staff members and others to know what our screening process is for paid staff and volunteers who work with minors. And it provides a system, a way that if there is an allegation, that we have a distinguished pathway to move forward that is very clear. And this document helps us reduce the rare possibility of false accusations by just operating in the best way we possibly could for the safety of everyone. So who's eligible to serve with minors in our church? Well, first of all, you need to be known. So you should attend Woodbridge NAS regularly for at least 6 months. We very, very occasionally make an exception after 3 months of regular attendance, but there's some extra steps. And this is simply just because we recognize that we have a military community around us who moves frequently. And so there's some extra things that go into that. 6 months is the golden standard, but we can have a conversation at 3 months in extenuating circumstances. We have a written application that should be completed. And this is for anybody. So you can start serving with the next gen in our church once you have graduated from Bridge Kids age. And so even if you're 12, you should complete this written application. Even if you're 112, you complete this written application. If you are over 18, it will authorize us to conduct a criminal background check on you as well. Do you have an interview with a director or pastor for children or youth? And as mentioned, we do a criminal background check for those who are age 18 plus, and we renew that background check every 2 years. And also we offer a training every year. Our standard is that everyone who serves with minors be retrained once a year. This is an example of that training or retraining. Okay, so Pastor Luke, I'm going to pass it over to you on page 3, setting the environment.
Okay, so we want to talk about now that you're a vetted team member, what environment are we going to have for the kids? We have something called the rule of two, which as much as possible, we want two unrelated and vetted team members. So this is not family members, not spouse, not parent, child, unrelated vetted team members for all drop-off ministry activities that involve minors. So that's not just something that we do with the kids, we do that with youth as well. Um, and so this is just going to reduce the chance that we have for abuse to occur, and it's going to just provide benefit and just protection to the team members that are serving with our minors. We also have a never alone rule. So in the case that there is not the appropriate amount of vetted team members, which sometimes that happens, we want to take steps to ensure the children's safety, like leaving a classroom door open, having multiple children present, maybe asking a parent to step in and help, or an occasional volunteer, to help to make sure that we're not in a situation where one team member is alone with a child. So we want to do whatever we can to avoid that. We also want to record attendance for each drop-off activity. That way we just know who is there. We need to look back. We know exactly who's there. We have an open door policy. All of our doors have windows on them. Those windows should remain unblocked at all times. Any doors that happen to not have windows, or if they get blocked for any reason, we want to just leave those doors open. We can create a split door if we need to keep kids, like let's say we're in nursery, to keep kids from leaving the space. You can use a baby gate to create a split door. That way it's an open door space, but you are still preventing children from leaving the room. And that's just going to, again, provide protection for both the children and our team members. We want to have approved staff and volunteers only in these spaces. Like Pastor Pam just mentioned, we have our vetting process and our application process, and only people who have gone through that process should be allowed in children's ministry spaces. And we can make exceptions for parents or guardians or older siblings to avoid that never alone policy, but they should only be helping with their family member, not with the other kids if they're not vetted team members. And that should be at the discretion of the team lead as well. Or vetted team members should be serving with children that day that should be checked in and wearing official generated name tag. So that's another, name tags are not just for the kids, so we know who's picking up what kid, but they're also for our team members, so parents know this person is someone that's safe for my kid to be with. And if there's ever an event where a team member can't serve on their agreed scheduled week or day, only another vetted team member can substitute for them. And that person should be contacting the ministry team leader to let them know that they won't be there, so that we can find someone who is vetted and is safe to be with our kids. So I'm going to pass it back over to Pastor Pam for toileting.
Oh, everybody's favorite topic. Okay.
Yes.
So when it comes to working with our littlest ones and diapers, diapers should only be changed by a vetted team member and within the sight line of another vetted team member. We use that word vetted team member because, again, we can have sometimes young people who are serving on our teams, like teens, but they're vetted. And so it's not just an adult. We're specifying if you've gone through this process, you are a vetted team member. And those are the people that can be doing these things. So it's not just any adult in the church. Okay, so that's what's going on with diaper changes. When it comes to preschool children, there are sometimes the kids will go downstairs, preschool age kids, into the bridge kids room where the bathroom is down the hall. So we're referring to that as a remote bathroom. In that case, preschool age children should be taken to the bathroom as a whole group or in a triad, so a grouping of 3. like maybe 2 children and 1 adult. But anybody remaining in the classroom still should be never alone. So you can't have 4 people in the room, you're following the triad, so you send 3 to the bathroom, and then, this kid is alone. Or even this way, if there's 1 kid and 1 adult, we still have to follow our never alone rules in coming up with that dynamic. So in the case of 4 people, you would want to just take everybody. When it comes to wiping, preschool age, we do not expect to be giving wiping assistance unless there's a really exceptional circumstance. And if that happens, then the stall door should be open. And as much as possible, also the hallway door open to another vetted team member who's out in that hallway, just again for transparency. Now, when the kids are upstairs in the preschool room, there's a bathroom right there. That's a local bathroom. So again, install assistance should only be done with the bathroom door ajar with another vetted team member in that room. When it comes to elementary kids using the bathroom, they can also go as a whole group, or they can use the buddy system and go with the same gendered, similar age here. Pastor Luke, I'm going to turn over to you to talk a little bit more of something that comes up with our teens, which is counseling and mentoring, and then giving rides.
So counseling and mentoring is something that is definitely more common with our teens and our young adults, although they don't fall into this minor protection policy. So sometimes it's just necessary to have one-on-one time with a teen if it's in the best interest of that kid. We want to make sure that when that happens, that it is in a visible setting. I've taken kids to coffee shops or go to McDonald's or something like that. And for accountability purposes, we want these meetings to be documented with one clergy, which would be either one of us, Pastor Pam or I, or one lay leader, like the board member for youth ministries or for discipleship. We want to document all the meetings with that same student, with the same leader, just so everything is known and it's above board. And we want to make our best attempt to document and report in at the beginning and then again at the end of these mentoring meetings. That way, again, like you can say, yes, I was with so and so. I told Pastor Pam at this time, and we were finished at this time, and I let her know then also. So we want to make sure that we're documenting, we're checking in, and it's always with the same person. And then giving rides, we have a section on transportation that we will get to later. But sometimes outside of scheduled transportation for an offsite event, parents may try to arrange rides for their kids with vetted team members, and that falls outside of your responsibility as a vetted team member. But sometimes just, we're all a church family. We want to help each other out. In the event that happens, treat it the same way as counseling and mentoring. You want to check in. You want to let a clergy member know, or one of our lay leaders know, that you are picking up this student. You want to let them know when you pick them up. You want to let them know when they drop off. I've had occasions where I've picked up a student before, and that student happened to be the child of a board member. And so there was communication between myself, the parent who is also a board member, and Pastor Pam at the time of pickup and the time of drop off. And that way there's never any question as to anything that's going on. It's all documented and reported in at those times.
Great,
So
thanks.
yeah, that's all
Okay.
for those things right there.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, we're gonna go down a little bit in our document now and talk about the check-in and check-out procedure for elementary and younger kids. So when a child who's elementary or younger, they need to get checked in, as Pastor Luke mentioned, they need to get a name tag. That name tag feeds into our record-keeping system. And so it makes sure that we have all of those records of who was there on a certain day, who the leader was on a certain day. And then it also has their little claim check, so we can make sure that kids are going home with the right grown-ups. If a child has any special needs or concerns like food allergies, or maybe they have a infection on their leg or something that we need to know about, that should be noted at drop off. And then also that claim tag, the parents are going to get it. So the kids should wear their name tags, and their grown-up should keep the corresponding number. Now, little kids or sometimes kids that are just like, oh, name tags are stupid, they just like to rip them off. So in that case, just remember they can also go on the child's back so that they are not distracted by that name tag. Every now and then, our computerized checking system goes down. It happened. It's happened. So, where the check-in desk is, you can pull that out a little bit, and there is an emergency paper version of check-in. There's a sheet where you write, the student writes their name and their grown-up, and then there's codes that get put on tags that the students can still wear. It's all handwritten, but it keeps us with that same level of integrity that we need to have. And then finally, team members who are serving with kids that day also should be checked in and wear an officially generated name tag, because that also then puts that volunteer's name in our attendance record, which means we don't have to chase down that data later. Okay, Pastor Luke, talk to us about health and safety guidelines.
All right. Well, we definitely we live in a post-COVID world, so these are very important. So the first one is our well child policy. If you are teaching in Bridge or you're teaching preschool and a kid comes and they just clearly they got some kind of a gunk, we don't want to receive children into nursery or into the classrooms that are very clearly ill and can spread that illness to other people, be it other children or the teachers. So when the parents bring them in, if you can just see that they are not well enough to be in church, speak to the parent because they shouldn't be exposing those germs and that illness to other people. If a child becomes ill while they're in the classroom setting, we want to make sure the team member is contacting the parent as soon as possible, and you're going to want to try to separate that student from the rest of the group, but still keeping them within the line of sight, and then just continue the activity with the remaining students. One team member should try to stay with that child, and if that's not possible, you just check on the child as frequently as possible until their parent or their guardian arrives. Medications, you should never be asked to give routine medications to these children. That's not your job, that's a parent's job. A rescue medication, like an allergy or an asthma or a doctor prescribed diaper cream, should only be administered to the student if the parent asks the team member to do so, and if the need is so immediate that a parent can't be summoned, and written instructions provided. So I'm thinking EpiPens or stuff like that. Like only if it's an emergency should we be giving any kind of rescue medication without parent advising us to do so. First aid kits, those should be and are readily available for handling cuts or bloody noses. We have a first aid kit in every room where children are being taught in a classroom setting. We have them in the office downstairs. We have them in the resource room downstairs. There's one in the check-in desk or in the welcome desk in the foyer. We have plenty of first aid kits. And if you see that there is not a first aid kit in one there's supposed to be, please report that to us so we can make sure one gets put there like it's supposed to be. With minor injuries, you're going to want to use those first aid kits to just treat, small, like a bandage on a paper cut or something like that, and then tell the parents or the guardians about that injury when the student is picked up. For moderate and serious health incidents that require anything beyond a basic first aid, we're going to want to provide initial care while paging that parent or that guardian, and if necessary, call 911, and a witnessing team member should be there. And you guys are going to want to complete an accident report and submit it to the designated leader for that area of ministry, preferably within 24 hours, just so we can, again, have everything documented and know what's happening in cases of emergencies like that.
Pastor Luke, let me pop in about that.
Sure.
That we keep paper versions of those forms in our resource room. So that would be one place to get it. And then also the same URL, woodbridgenaz.com/MPP, has a digital version of that form there as well.
Yep. So we want to move to offsite activities now. This is just anything that is a church event, but it's not happening right here. So for any offsite activities is that we're going to try to keep the same standards that we're setting forward for all of our on-site activities. One difference is, again, as Pastor Pam just mentioned, that MPP page on our website, you can find this as well. We're going to have permission slips for each child or youth that's going to be participating in that event, as well as emergency care permission slips. And those, again, all those documents are on the same page. And those, if we have those filled out for students, those are good for up to 3 years. For any overnight or extended events, like a district event, for example, this past weekend, we went to the NYI Winter Retreat offsite at another church. Those events will all have their own vetting process and training process for any leaders that are helping with those, and they're going to have their own emergency release forms and permission slips and all that. But we're still going to have ours as leaders that are supervising or taking students on any of those trips. So we're going to have ours as well as letting the district have theirs. And that's going to be the same thing for overnight events that we host here. We're going to have those permission slips, and we'll have extra overnight supervision plans for those events, which we don't currently have any. But should that come up where we do have some of those scheduled, we'll have those made for those events, and parents or guardians will be made aware of all housing accommodations before any of our students depart on any of those trips, and we'll have event-specific permission slips for those events. And most of those events are going to involve transportation. We have a list of transportation requirements that we're going to go over. So we're going to have all drivers that are driving students. They need to be known to the designated leader of the event. So we don't want, my sister's boyfriend's cousin, he can drive a bus. We want to know who it is that's driving our students. All drivers must be at least 21 years old to drive minors. They need to have a valid driver's license for the vehicle being operated. We no longer own a bus, but we had a bus that required a CDL license. So just because you have your normal license doesn't mean you can drive any vehicle. So we want to make sure we have the appropriate license for that vehicle. Drivers must have proof of insurance. They must indicate a driving record clear of major violations. Drivers of church vehicles should be added to the driver's list held at the church office. So even though we don't have any church vehicles right now, anything that we may rent, we're going to count that as a church vehicle, and we need you to have that person on our driving list. And if you're driving minors, you're going to have a background check completed with our church, just to be a vetted driver for that. It's the same as teaching in class. We just need to know who these people are. And then we also have virtual online activities, which is its own thing. We want to try to have a lot of the same rules for these online activities, even though children are most likely in their own space. We want to have 2 unrelated team members that have been vetted supervising those. Any link to any Google Meet or Zoom or whatever platform you're using, we don't want to share those link codes publicly because we want to be in control of who is in those online meeting spaces with our minors. And so we want to avoid publicly sharing any pictures of our minors without permission of parents or guardians, and sharing names of anything that happens on those. We want to treat these online meeting spaces as if they're a classroom in our building. Just because it's virtual doesn't mean that we're going to care for our students any less. If a child shows up without appropriate clothing on, without a shirt or without bottoms, the host can use the host function to turn off their camera, and then we're going to follow up with a parent or guardian afterward. We've all seen the jokes online where camera people and news anchors are wearing their suit bottom and their pajama bottoms. We want to make sure everybody has their tops and bottoms on in any of these online meeting spaces. Just because we're home and we're comfortable doesn't mean we need to be too comfortable. So those are our online and virtual activity policies.
So we're going to move into section C, which is responding to suspicious or inappropriate behaviors. So sometimes in the course of interacting with minors, questions of abuse, neglect, potential grooming for abuse, or violations of our policy here may come up. You may encounter clues. It may be something that you personally observe, that you heard directly, that you've overheard. It could have happened during certain activities, or it might come up just somewhere unrelated, that you hear something happen to a student at their school or at home. And so we want to figure out how we care for minors in the midst of this. So if something suspicious or inappropriate comes to a team member's attention, report it to an appropriate church leader. So appropriate church leaders include a pastor, a ministry director, or a board member. And if it involved us, you wouldn't bring it to us, right? That's why we have this list of a variety of people to bring it to. Although as long as one of the two of us are not involved, please bring it to the pastoral staff first, just because we have more experience in handling some of these situations. So when it comes to actually being abused or neglected, there is a standard in the state of Virginia of what that means legally. And so that is included in the MPP. So you should take a look at what that definition is. The state of Virginia also talks about who are mandatory reporters and who are voluntary reporters. And so you may find that because of your professional work, you fall into more of a mandatory category, depending on the way you're serving in the church. So read that over. But I just want to say, regardless of what the state of Virginia says, we hold a higher standard in our church. So we are 100% supportive of Virginia's codes, but we actually raise the bar of that. And so I want to talk about that next. But I do just want to point out that if there is a situation that you must report to the state, it needs to happen within 24 hours legally. Is the benchmark on that. And then we've included some helpful phone numbers for doing that. Okay, so reporting in the church. Let's say that there is a violation of our policy and it's victimless. Okay, so a victimless thing might be a child didn't get checked and they don't have a name tag, right? Like it's not like a danger to a minor, but also we have this policy for a reason. And because we've made the policy, we need to uphold the policy legally. And so in that case, you just want to work. You want to work to remedy the situation. Speak up, volunteer, like, hey, let me go check little Bobby in and I'll bring you his name tag. Work to remedy the situation first. And then after that, you can loop in a ministry director. Or if you don't even feel comfortable going to get the name tag right away, again, reach out to an appropriate leader to help you. And then after that, the ministry director needs to go back to that team member and train them more. And so again, if you have done something that's kind of in this victimless category, it happens, right? Everybody's learning these policies. And so we want to have a high feedback culture where if we see something, we say something. And so expect to have a conversation about what the standard is so that we meet that standard going forward. Now, if things cannot be remedied, then a remediation plan may be worked out. But hopefully we just work things out through additional training together. Now, if there is a suspicion of abuse or neglect, please report it immediately to an appropriate leader. Do not go it alone. We want to walk with you and help you through navigating this. Now, the accused individual, what will happen in that case is they will be required to refrain from participating in activities with minors. Well, there's kind of a discovery period to determine if further action will be taken. And then the accused individual should be insulated from further contact with the alleged victim or their family. Again, we want to just give it some space for the systems to work in the way that they need to work. In the case that we need to respond to something, a responding committee will be formed, and it will include at least 2 members of the board, one of whom can be the senior pastor, unless it is an allegation against clergy, in which we loop in the district superintendent immediately. And then the responding committee has a process that they will follow. Again, don't go it alone. And if you see something, say something. So if the responding committee determines that there is reasonable cause to suspect child abuse or neglect, then our MPP outlines the next steps that will happen. And also none of this is in opposition to Virginia standards, right? This is taking Virginia standards and then applying with them and elevating them to meet our own higher standards. But we just outline what will happen step by step and how they will work within those guidelines. So, training for persons who work with minors is this section D. Team members are expected to undergo training focused on issues of child protection prior to serving with minors and then again annually. So we want you to have a sense of what it looks like if for the health of children, emotionally, physically, what it looks like, what grooming behaviors may look like, so we don't ever even get close to a situation of abuse. And so we provide some links where you can pick the way you want to keep educating yourself on these. So in our trainings, we always name some of these things. We encourage you to select one of these additional opportunities and resources to learn even more about this. Finally, once you are done with this session, you will need to complete an acknowledgement that you have completed it. This is on page 11 of your MPP. We'll give you a separate form for you to sign so you can keep your MPP with you. Additional forms of this acknowledgement are in the resource room and online. Also, I just want to keep looking at the last pages of the document. We have something that's called appropriate physical contact, affection, and discipline. This is a great way to keep educating yourself. One, it's part of this MPP, so we do expect you to read it. But two, this is something that goes toward that idea of continued education. Beyond that is our minor protection policy definitions. If there is a word in the MPP above that you are not clear on, or you just kind of understand what our standards are, those definitions should help you. And then below that is just examples of the forms that are part of our application process. There's the application itself, which is in the resource room and online, what a reference check form looks like, what an accident injury report looks like, what an offsite event permission form looks like. We got all the goodies there. And then you can just keep looking through that. And the last thing is an occasional volunteer form. We almost never use this form, but every now and then, let's say we have like Everybody Fun Week and somebody is going to be checking kids in, we may have them complete this form just again, because we always want to be very protective of our minors and we always want to show that, that we're going that extra mile to know those who have care, custody, or control of our minors so that we can continue having great ministry here at Woodbridge NAS. Thanks so much for your time.